program.
So Jai Bhim to all of you, and it's wonderful that today we are going to study an interesting section from the Buddha's Dhamma. Before we begin, we chant our traditional chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
ये सर्कल में कितने
Tassa
गोले अंदर?
bhagavato arahato
सर्कल में
samma
कितने गोले हैं? भगवान बच्चे कितने
sambuddhassa.
हैं?
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So we are at a very important journey and point in our studies where we are going to study a very interesting section of the Buddha's Dhamma, which is about is as a part of what is Dhamma, and the chapter is called "To Give Up Craving is Dhamma." So that is going to be our chapter today. To give up craving, to give up craving is the Dhamma. So as we have seen last time that Baba Sahib Ambedkar began with a very interesting gatha from the Dhammapad. Arogya param labha, nibbana santutti param dhanam, vissasang paramajati, and nibbanang paramasukham. As I told you that Baba Sahib liked this gatha very much, and he was so much in awe of this gatha that he has mentioned this gatha when we studied the previous section about what is Nibbana, and the chapter was titled as "To Live in Nibbana is Dhamma." And Baba Sahib Ambedkar, the verse number 1, Baba Sahib Ambedkar quoted the same gatha. So here, when we are looking at this chapter, which is titled as "To Give Up Craving is Dhamma." Okay, so to give up craving is the Dhamma, and the very first verse in this chapter is about, in the Dhammapad, the Buddha says, there is no greater benefit than health, and there is nothing more valuable than the spirit of contentment. So the same gatha, but in parts. Two of the sentences taken by Baba Sahib Ambedkar to elucidate this very interesting point about to give up craving is Dhamma. And we have seen that Baba Sahib Ambedkar has given very many definitions of Dhamma. And this is a very interesting sort of an account of what is Dhamma. So let me read the verse number 1. There is no greater benefit than health, arogya param labha, and there is nothing more valuable than the spirit of contentment, santutti paramadhanam. And then Baba Sahib Ambedkar goes on glossing over the very important term santutti, or what we call in English contentment. So the verse number 2 goes like this: this spirit of contentment is not to be understood to mean meekness or surrender to circumstances. So whenever we think about what is called the quality of santutti or contentment, we tend to think that it's an inactive life, it's a passive response to the world, as if we have no action to be undertaken in the world, as if it is an attitude of meekness or surrender to circumstances. Now this particular section is so important because most of the times when we talk about Buddhism, we talk about Trishna, and craving is called the Trishna, and then the end of the craving and the annihilation of the craving is what we all the time talk about. So this particular there is a contradiction or a conflict between two sort of the values of contentment and what we call the desires. So you follow it carefully, because most of the times when we talk about Buddhism being the path to end the cravings, Baba Sahib Ambedkar takes a very different attitude towards it. So let's look at the verse number 3, which says, because that would be quite contrary to the other teachings of the Buddha. So as we have seen that whenever we study Buddhism or whenever we study any of the Buddhist sutta, we have to see the words in the context of the sentence, and that sentence in the context of a paragraph, and that paragraph in the context of the tone of the sutra or sutta. Likewise here, whenever the Buddha talks about anything, we have to understand the meaning of that particular word in that particular context and in that particular position. Now, as we know that Baba Sahib Ambedkar has embraced Buddhism because he knew that the Buddha never ennobled the poverty. Like we have seen that other religions are ennobling poverty, particularly Christianity, where it is said that a camel can pass through the eye of the needle, but a rich man cannot go to the heaven. The Buddhism has no such sort of ideas. So verse number 4, the Buddha has not said, blessed are they who are poor. So Buddha has never said that the poor are blessed ones. And I think this is very remarkable because, when we talk about Buddhism, it is considered or it is thought of something which glorifies poverty or the lifestyle which has, nothing to do with so-called materialism. That's why this particular sentence is very, very important, where the Buddha says that Buddha never said, blessed are they who are poor. And we have seen in the Buddhist history, there were great kings, there were rich men, there were traders, there was Amrapali, there was Mallika, Queen Mallika, who gave so much dana to the to the Buddha Sangha. And therefore we can say that the Buddha never ever glorified the poverty. And that's why, taking it from there, the verse number 5, the Buddha has not said that the sufferer should not try to change his conditions, because you cannot be contented with whatever given to you. Because if you are suffering, you cannot say that let me go on suffering forever. If you are poor right now, you cannot glorify your condition of poverty at that time. This is, I would say, one of the geniuses of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, because he has read widely through the suttas, and he knows that how to connect this part of the sutta to that part of the sutta, this sutta with that sutta. So he has taken a very holistic view of the situation and has given us a very comprehensive sort of an account of Buddhism that now we are going to, we are studying. On the other hand, he has said that riches are welcome, and instead of listless suffering, he taught virya, which is energetic action. So Buddhism is not something very passive as we try to construe it as. It's an active sort of a method or a philosophy or a practice. You divorce Buddhism from virya, and what remains of Buddhism? Nothing. So virya, just like contentment, santutti, is a part of the Buddha's teaching. Also, the virya is a part of Buddha's teaching. And now the verse number 7 clarifies what is it all mean. What the Buddha meant when he said that contentment is the highest form of wealth is that man should not allow himself to be overpowered by greed, which has no limits. And we have seen when we are trying to pursue the higher happiness, and Baba Sahib Ambedkar said that there is no happiness, higher than the experience of Nibbana. And he has gone on explaining what is Nibbana in terms of giving up raga, dosa, and moha, and that is the only way by which we can have the supreme happiness, param sukh. And the way to the param sukh is, of course, lies in dana, lies in cultivating the the merciful or loving kindness and perceiving the truth. And when we are set on this path, as Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, that the two poisons, raga and dvesha, they are all emotions. And we know that the emotions sometimes overpower us. And in this particular section that we have studied previously, Baba Sahib Ambedkar said that unless we try to work on these emotions of raga, dosa, which is related to other human beings, which is related to other people, and of course dvesha, dosa is all about other people. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar has very categorically said that these are the emotions. And the ditti is an intellectual counterpart of it. And the wrong ideas lead to suffering. Therefore, the wrong ideas about Buddhism will not let us go ahead in practice. And to have the right understanding of Buddhism is so quintessential in Baba Sahib Ambedkar's scheme of the Buddha Dhamma. And here, when we are studying this part, the contradiction between, whether the Buddhist should pursue wealth and to what avail, to what purpose, Baba Ambedkar makes it very clear when he says what the Buddha meant when he said that contentment is the highest form of wealth, is that man should not allow himself to be overpowered by greed, which has no limits. And then, of course, Baba Ambedkar brings into play a lot of suttas, particularly here, what the Bhikkhu Rathapal has said. Rich men I see who, folly led, never give, but still amass a thirst for pleasures new. The king whose conquest to the sea extend, for sway over empires, overseas will pine, still craving. Kings and subjects pass away, lacking, still lacking. They their bodies quit. Never on earth can pleasures measure be filled. So what Bhikkhu Raktapala is saying, that there is no limit, as we have seen in the previous section, to our greed. There is no limit to the pleasures that we seek. It's limitless. So because it's limitless, there is no stage in anyone's life where one can say that, I have had all the pleasures sought by me. There is nothing beyond it. All the time we are lacking something. There is always a lack of something in everybody's life, because we cannot have the complete material fulfillment, in the sense that we cannot own the entire universe. Nobody can do that. It's not possible for anybody to do that. And therefore, because there is limit to greed, if we are greedy, it's endless greed. We always want, if we have one house, we want another house. If we have one car, we want another car. If we have something, we want another things. That cycle goes on and on. The greed has no limit at all. And therefore, contentment, like we should know limits of what contents us. And that's where I think very fundamental to today's discussion here. So I'm going to read verse number 8 again. As the Bhikkhu Rathapala has said, rich men I see who, folly led, they are led by the errors, never give, but still amass. They keep on amassing. They never give. They never make dana. A thirst for pleasures anew. They always want new pleasures. Like we always seek or try to seek new pleasures. The king whose conquest to the sea extend. When the king has won over the land, they want to have the conquest over the seas. For sway over empires overseas will pine, still craving. The king still crave, even they are in the middle of the plenty, they still crave. Kings and subjects pass away, lacking, still lacking. Their bodies quit, never on earth can pleasures measure be filled. Very interesting sort of a verse here. And from verse number 9 onwards, we enter into a domain of a very interesting sutta from Digha Nikaya. And the sutta is called Mahanidana Sutta. So we know that in Digha Nikaya, we get Mahasatipattan Sutta, we get Brahmajal Sutta, and so on and so forth. We get Mahaparinirvan Sutta, and Baba Ambedkar has referred to Mahaparinirvan Sutta many times. But here, interestingly, Baba Ambedkar refers to a very interesting sutra called Mahanidana Sutta. Now we are somehow familiar with the doctrine of what is called a Paticca Samutpad. So this Paticca Samutpad, in a simplified way, it shows that nothing is independent, everything is interdependent, and the things arise depending on the causes and conditions. This thing leads to that thing. This is not, that is not. With the arising of this, that arises. With the passing of this, that passes away. So with having this formulation of Paticca Samutpad, Mahanidana Sutta, and I recommend all of you to read this Mahanidana Sutta, because it is a very comprehensive sort of the teachings of the Buddha on what is called the Paticca Samutpad. Very comprehensive sort of a teaching. And we have seen the formulations, various formulations of Paticca Samutpad, because the Buddha himself has given many variations of the Paticca Samutpad. So there are in different suttas, there are the different ways the Buddha has tried to teach the Paticca Samutpad. And in Mahanidana Sutta, the Buddha has very comprehensively gone into many aspects of the Paticca Samutpad. So we know that there are 12 nidanas, and the 12 nidanas, is a list that how ignorance leads, avidya pachya sankhara, how Vigyan. That's a traditional formula that we all are familiar with. But very interestingly, in the Mahanidana Sutta, there is a social interpretation of Paticca Samutpada. And as we know that Baba Sahib Ambedkar's quality of studying the Dhamma or the suttas was that he tried to bring out the very essential element which will fall in the place of his understanding of Buddhism. Similarly, Mahanidan Sutta is a very long sutta. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar could have picked up the longer version of it, the longer sort of a teachings of it, which we get traditionally, and we also find it in Buddha and his Dhamma elsewhere. But here, Baba Sahib Ambedkar has picked up a very interesting sort of part of the Mahanidan Sutta. So what is the part that Baba Sahib Ambedkar picked up from the Mahanidan Sutta? So this sutta, Mahanidan Sutta, is explained to Ananda. And this is what the Buddha says about craving through the Mahanidan Sutta. So the verse number 9 goes like this. In the Mahanidana Sutta, the Buddha has explained to Ananda the necessity of controlling greed. This is what he said. Now, pay attention very clearly as to what elements of the Mahanidan Sutta that Baba Sahib Ambedkar has picked up. So the verse number 10 goes like this. This is it, Ananda, that craving comes into being because of desire for gain. Because we have a desire to gain something. That's why the craving arises. When desire for gain becomes a passion for possession, when the spirit of possession gives rise to tenacity of possession, it becomes avarice. You see how the desire for gain amplifies into the neurotic sort of the greed. And we all have experience. It begins with a small desire to gain. And then this desire for gain becomes a passion for possession. Now the desire for gain becomes the passion for possession. When the spirit of possession gives rise to tenacity of possession, that we hold on to something so tenaciously, so firmly that we don't want to give up. And it becomes avarice. You see, it's also a Paticca Samutpada is also conditioned sort of reality, that the desire for gain leads to passion for possession. The passion for possession gives rise to tenacity of possession, and then it becomes avarice. Avarice is a very, very intensified form of greed. You want it so badly. You want something so badly. Okay. Avarice or possession due to uncontrolled acquisitive instinct calls for watch and ward. Now see how beautifully this verse number 11 is construed and translated by Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Avarice or possession due to uncontrolled. You see, this word uncontrolled in Pali is like adantang, or something which we don't have a control over. Sometimes we do not have control over our greed. We cannot. We have so much in this in the grip of that possessive mind that we lose control. So avarice or possession due to uncontrolled acquisitive instinct calls for watch and ward. So we have to watch this uncontrolled acquisitive instincts. That's what the Buddha taught. So this is very instinctual in us, that we cannot but be greedy. We have desire for gain. We have desire for fame. We have desire for everything. And when that desire turns into the tenacity of possession, that neurotic hold on something, then as the Buddha says, that it calls for watch and ward. We have to be mindful. We have to watch it. We have to watch our minds that time. And then the verse number 12 goes like this. And I think this is a very interesting sort of an account of Paticca Samutpada, or when you look at the society around us. And that's the genius of Buddha. That's the genius of how the Buddha has tried to link all of his teachings to the welfare of the people. And that's also the genius of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Because as I told you, Mahanidan Sutta is a vast sutta. We can derive so much of it. But the way Baba Sahib Ambedkar has picked up the more important and essential points out of it, which comes in the verse number 12, which I'm going to read, is why is this craving or greed to be condemned? Now, why we should condemn the craving or greed? Why? because of this. You see, the Buddha is a teacher for excellence, par excellence. The way he teaches, the way he guides, the way he simplifies the matter, the way he exposes something is very unique, logical, practical, and very easily communicable. So what is it? Why is this craving or greed to be condemned because of this, said the Buddha to Ananda. Many a bad and wicked state of things arises. Because of greed, craving, what happens? Many a bad and wicked state of things arises. Blows and wounds, strife, contradiction and retorts, quarreling, slander and lies. You see, as I was telling you that there are many different interpretations of Paticca where Buddha has talked about how the suffering arises and so on and so forth. But also the Buddha talks about how the conflict arises in the society because the society is in the grip of the tenacity of possession. So the verse number 12 is very profound. It's very, very profound. It needs careful attention. It needs to be studied very deeply. Why is this craving or greed to be condemned because of this, said the Buddha to Ananda. Many a bad and wicked state of things arises, blows and wounds, strife, contradiction and retorts, quarreling, slander and lies. And the verse number 13 goes like this, that this is the correct analysis of class struggle, there can be no doubt. Now you see, the craving is directly connected to the class struggle by Baba Ambedkar very logically. The logical conclusion is this, that if there is a possessive sort of a mentality, if there is a tenacity to hold on to something, if there is a tenacity to hold on to material possessions or ideas, it is ultimately going to lead to the strife in the society, to the contradictions in the society, and it will lead to quarreling, slander, and lies. And we see all around us. Whatever Buddha is teaching us here, or the way Baba Ambedkar put that particular section from the Mahanidan Sutta here, then this is how we see that the contradictions arise in the society. And the verse number 13 goes like this, that this is the correct analysis of class struggle, there can be no doubt. And that is why the Buddha insisted upon control of greed and craving. So this chapter is very small, and there is so much we can learn from this chapter. There is a mention of Mahanidan Sutta, which I encourage all of you to kindly go through it and look into it, because the Paticca Samutpada is often taken as a very sort of a personal teaching, but even in the Mahanidan Sutta, the Buddha has brought out the social elements of it, and that's what Baba Ambedkar has mentioned here in this chapter. So with this, let's open up our class for any further discussions, any comments, or anything that anybody would like to add, or anybody would like to reflect on anything.
Sir, in verse number 5.
Verse number 5. Let me look into verse number 5. Yeah.
Buddha has said, not said that sufferer should not try to change his condition. It means he is directing us that there is nothing like fate.
There is nothing like fate. Umesh, you are right. There is nothing like fate in Buddhism.
Yeah, and nothing we have to go on this ground for destiny.
We don't have to accept anything as a fate accompli or as a destiny. You're right, Umesh.
So that now the 6th verse, I would like you request you to just elaborate that I'm missing,
right.
That what he's saying.
Okay, let me read it again. On the other hand, he has said that riches are welcome.
Sorry for disturbance.
Yes.
If you allow me to share, I can share that screen where we are discussing those things.
We can do that, but what happens? Let's carry on without the text right now. If anybody, I recommend that each of you have a book in front of you.
Okay.
Instead of having it on the screen, because as I told you that our purpose is to make Buddha and his Dhamma your own book. And the more it is underlined or the more it is written on, it's better for us. Isn't it? So one day I will show you my copy of it. I got a few copies. but I underline it. I try to reflect on the sentences. So what I'm trying to get it at is let's make Buddha and his Dhamma our own book. Okay, let's make it a personal book so that it guides us continuously throughout our lives. Okay, that's why we have never had a shared screen in these classes, right? Today we are in the 26th of the class, but we have never shared a screen. I recommend all of you to get your book, read it as and when, reflect on it, on sentences, on words, and all that comes from it. So
for time being, it's there in chat if anybody wants to refer.
Yeah, I think it's in the group. So let's look in the chat. In the chat, somebody has put up. I think somebody has put. Okay, the verse number 6. On the other hand, he has said that riches are welcome. So you see, as we have seen that Buddha was very close to Anathapindaka, and Anathapindaka was a very rich man. His business was so flourishing a business. They say that he was a very successful trader. He had 500 carts, bullock carts, and he used to trade all the way throughout India and so on and so forth. So the Buddha has never ever, ennobled the poverty. And in the classic text of Mahayana, there are sutras where the bodhisattvas are very rich. If you see if you go to Ajanta, you go to any of the Buddhist sites, you see how the bodhisattvas are depicted there. The Buddha is very simply shown, like one chewer with his shoulder exposed. Buddha is very simple. But if you look at the bodhisattvas around, they are very rich. They have beautiful crowns, they have beautiful jewelries, they have beautiful dresses, and so on and so forth. So never ever the Buddha has said that we shouldn't earn money. And there are Jataka tales which talks about how the bodhisattva used to go for a business and how the virya made the bodhisattva a very successful businessman. So there is, I think, no scope for ennobling poverty. And at some point of time, as Baba Ambedkar has given us in writing, that the Buddha thought that poverty is also suffering. Poverty is one form of suffering. When we talk about dukkha has a very broader connection in Buddhism. It's not just about the psychological suffering. It's also social suffering. It's also suffering due to structures around us. It's also suffering due to poverty. And in Buddhism, there are in the Buddhist text, there are mentions of some interesting things. Like one interesting thing is that when you attain to the truth, it's like all your debt are paid. So the feeling of your all debts paid and you are free from debt. It's very materialistic sort of a simile, but it speaks volumes of the way the Buddha has tried to teach. Okay, so he has said that riches are welcome, and instead of listless suffering, he taught virya, which is energetic action. So Buddhism is not passivity. It's not something accepting by not acting upon it. It's about energetic action. It's about virya. Is it right, Umesh bhai?
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Isn't it?
And very profound.
We have to always find ways to go beyond our present, adverse circumstances. We cannot be hold on by the circumstances. We cannot be taken down. We cannot be grounded. We cannot be broken down, whatever the circumstances are, because the Buddha calls for virya. Buddha calls for energetic action. Same with Baba Sahib Ambedkar, isn't it?
Yes, sir. And the very much solution you have given of this question in few sentences back, that debt has been paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome, Ajay. Anything?
Yeah, Mangesh bhai are here.
Harish bhai, long time.
Yeah, means I was going to multiple articles here and there across the internet and web, and like regarding this clinging and craving. So these are very important part of everyone's life. In the moment we are born, probably we start craving or clinging so unknowingly or unconsciously that we keep on that habit for a long time till we like know or start knowing that something we have to discard or something we have to stop that. So always associate that with lot of good habits or bad habits, whatever it is we call.
Right.
So there is always like what you call withdrawal symptoms happens with all of these habits.
Yeah.
More common. So how do we deal with all those things when we go along in our life regarding these types of cravings or clingings?
See, I think first of all, we have to accept it as the fact that these are instincts. Okay, because see the verse number, see verse number 11. Avarice or possession due to uncontrolled acquisitive instinct. So, you know, these instincts like raga, dvesha, and moha, they are instincts and they are acquisitive instincts and they are uncontrolled, right? So we have, all of us need to find the ways or method to control them. And the only way to control them is through transforming raga into araga. We have seen that in the last previous sections as to the purity of body, purity of speech, purity of mind. And we have talked about the perfection of body, perfection of speech, and perfection of mind. I think these two words, purity and perfection, in a sense of, you know, practicing as a noble eightfold path, is the way to, you know, control the acquisitive instincts. Because, you know, these are instincts, they are so natural to us. We are born with a mind which always try to, you know, is always conditioned to possess. We are born with a mind which is not able to see the way it is. It's always controlled or mediated by the senses and our conditions, isn't it? But the point that Buddha has made, that even when we are in this drudgery, or whenever we are moving in this cycle of craving, there is always a hope. As Baba Ambedkar said, that there is a light coming, though the light is dimmed. And if we make enough efforts, we can bootstrap ourselves from these conditions. So whatever conditions there are, and we have seen in the Buddhist Dhamma previously, that Baba Ambedkar said that no situation is hopeless. We all make mistakes. We all, you know, we all are sometimes fallen people, isn't it? But the most important thing that Baba Ambedkar says, that there is always a hope. Even a vicious person like, you know, Angulimal, as we have seen, and, you know, a few examples that we have seen in the Buddhist Dhamma, they have a hope. Buddhism is a religion of hope, isn't it? And we have to activate the will in that direction. And Baba Ambedkar has very profoundly used this word, that activating the wheel in that direction. Isn't it, Harsha?
Yeah.
So there are so many resources available with us that can help us to really come out of any situation. The situations are not that hopeless that we tend to think. And most of the times the situations are created by our own minds. The sun, the moon, the trees have nothing to do about our mental states, right?
True.
Sometimes the other people have nothing to do with our mental states.
Yeah, means I usually try to categorize these cravings or being in two categories, like which are controlled by someone and which are controlled by myself.
Right.
Like, so for example, which are not controlled by me, someone else controls. Probably we tend to just slowly like get out of that. But the ones which are like in our control, so I could give a simple like example of like, I want to stop taking tea or coffee. So it becomes difficult, right?
Right.
Try for 5 days, 6 days, then it starts giving you the withdrawal symptoms. Then you can't control and just take it again and again start the habit. So that is where like a lot of teachings of this Buddha comes into picture. Right. And we want to really get rid of those types of cravings or things.
Right. I think we will go for another 10 minutes because today our section was small, and the ideal time, you know, is 1 hour. but let's go for another 10 minutes. If anybody has anything to say or comment or reflect on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello. I think in this chapter, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has highlighted the middle path of Buddha's teaching. Means Buddha had never glorified the poverty.
Right.
As well as he has enunciated to stop amassing wealth.
Yes.
Means in between of these two ends.
Yes.
So likewise, this point I wanted to tell, which you had already told in fact.
Yeah.
But this is a very appealing one.
Yes. There is no doubt that we have to earn money.
The poor person has to employ the right efforts.
Yes. Agreed.
And by employing the right efforts, he should make his living better.
Yes.
Improve his standard of living.
Yes.
At the same time, he has to stop somewhere, not go on amassing wealth.
Yes. No, I think the wealth and what you do with that wealth is very important.
Yes.
Some of you can look into the Buddhist text and see what are the duties of the wealthy man.
Yeah.
And what was Buddha's attitude towards wealth?
Yeah.
Isn't it? I
think
the
Dana again comes into picture.
Dana, and also the being industrious, and how the wealth that you gain by the rightful means is beneficial to you and others. Isn't it?
Yeah. So this is very important actually chapter.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mahasanji.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I will request that put some light on that Mahanidana Sutta, sir. So is that forcibly stopping something and arriving at a certain level with consciousness? That makes the difference, I hope.
Yeah, Umeshji, as I told you that, the Paticca Samutpada in his very basic formulation is like this. This leads to that. Okay. This is that is. This is not, that is not.
Perfect.
So depending on this, that arises.
Wow, great.
Okay. So this is a basic formulation of Paticca Samutpada. Then you can apply it to how the desires arise in your mind. And Buddha has given a very beautiful sort of a chain of causation as to how one thing leads to another.
Okay, great.
And that you can very well see in the traditional Buddhist Pali formula. You can see it in the Mahanidana Sutta very beautifully. Like if I remember, I don't know, I have not recited for a long time, but it goes like this: Avijja Pachya Sankhara Pachya Vijnanang, Vijnanang Pachya Namarupam Pachya, Sadayatan Pachya Vedana Pachya Phassa Pachya Tanna, like that. So there are these like 12. This leads to that, this leads to that, this leads to that. And ultimately it leads to the suffering. Okay. Maybe when we go ahead, I will take up the study of the suttas, particularly Mahanidana Sutta. So this is a traditional sort of a formula which you find all over the places where this Paticca Samutpada is mentioned. But also in a few formulations that the Buddha has taught, the Paticca Samutpada is also explains how the conflict and the quarrel arises in the society. In the Mahanidana Sutta itself, the Buddha has talked about this, and Babasaheb Ambedkar has taken just that part of it and quoted here for us. Umeshji.
Perfect, sir.
Okay.
So sir, from which you have recited very beautifully, and the thing that's the crux of this lesson, I hope.
That is the crux of this lesson. But what happens? That's one way of formulating Paticca Samutpada.
Okay.
Okay. There are another ways of formulating the Paticca Samutpada.
Right, sir. Sadhu, sir. Thank you so much.
See, this you will find in that Vidhi book also. Anicca Vata Sankara.
No, that's a different thing, brother. See, what I'm trying to tell you is, Babasaheb Ambedkar was deeply read in the Pali text.
Yes.
very deeply read in the Pali text, and
Yeah, yeah.
now, I'm also now trying to read Pali in other sources. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
correlate.
Yeah.
Okay, so particularly the dictionary that Baba Ambedkar wrote. So you pick up a word, you take Paticca Samutpad, look into what Baba Ambedkar has mentioned there,
Yeah.
isn't it?
See, actually, the way you interpret, that is also very amazing. Actually, no one, interpret this kind of things
No, it's all
in
Baba
our
says,
society.
it's
They
all
go on
written.
reading just like that. But correlating the matter
It's
is
all
very
written.
unique.
It's all written,
Very,
Mahasenji.
very amazing way of your explanation. Thank you
Yes,
very
very
much.
true, sir. Very true.
Yes.
I too support these words.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
No, you also interpret, the way you interpret means
Mhm.
you have understood the mind of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, how he has
no,
correlated
sir,
like that.
sir.
It means to some extent, because we have not come across the people who, talk this way or interpret this way.
Mahasenji, no, let's not talk about this. What I'm saying is,
I'm not lavishing undue praise, but this is a fact.
no,
This is a fact what I have observed.
No, I think let's settle on what Baba Ambedkar has written, and I think he has
Okay.
written,
Yeah.
I
No,
think he has written.
That is our basic chapter today.
Yeah. And I think like the more we engage with Buddha and his Dhamma,
Yeah.
the more light will dawn on us. Because I think
That's why we should repeatedly read.
Repeatedly
read and meditate on that.
Yes. I think that is how you practice the Buddha and his Dhamma, brother.
Yeah.
Yes. So if there is nothing else, should we end our class early today? Vidyanand?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Vidyanand wants to say something. Vidyanand?
Yeah. The thing is, right, looking at reflections from Baba Sahib's writing and Buddhist Buddha, it is quite clear that Buddha has never glorified the position of wealth, and or even he has not glorified the poverty as such. But in a society, let's say in a society, there are what we have are the shared resources, and the moment we possess something. And try to possess, or let's say we followed the paths of Pratitya Samutpa, we have no cravings over our possessions and nothing it. But that will on the other hand, it may produce an inequality. And Maha Nidhana Sutta, as you said, it's about the welfare of classes and welfare of the people. So how can we think about this contradiction which is been naturally occurring by the possession of your wealth or
yeah. Vidyanand, I think you will be the better student of that, being an economist yourself, isn't it? I think there is enough sort of material Buddhism to construe or to understand the contradiction that you are mentioning about, isn't it? If you look at Buddhism just from the point of view of personal liberation, and the leave aside what the Buddha has taught in terms of social, what Buddha has taught in terms of political things, I think we are doing great injustice to the Buddha himself, isn't it? So Buddha was concerned with suffering, and suffering doesn't mean only psychologized suffering. You see, the suffering comes in many forms. The poverty is suffering, the exploitation is suffering, right?
Right.
So what is the path? How this Noble Eightfold Path can be practiced in a way that deals with the structural suffering. And to answer this question, Baba Ambedkar has written very beautifully in Buddha All Marks. Buddha All Marks. I think the mind like you are an economist. You should go and pursue that Buddha All Marks.
I've gone through it. I'll again reread the text since it has come out through this discussion.
Yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful way of studying, and there are books like Buddhist economics, and how to deal with this issue of governance. Okay, I will refer a few books to you. Is that okay, Vidyanand?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go through it.
So before we end, I would like to take a call, ask Sunita ji and Shilpi ji whether they have anything to say today. Shilpi, any comments from you? Sunita ji, any comments from you?
Mangesh bhai, as you said that we have to make Buddha and his Dhamma our own by reading it again and again.
Yes.
And taking notes out of it. So seriously, we need to get it done as soon as possible and walk the path.
Right.
Jai Bhim to all. I really liked, sir, when you talked about the resistance and of giving up this lure of greed and constant greed. Like you reflected on a very important aspect of being human, that this is somehow by default or by the customs or by the conditioning we grow up in a society among many different aspects, like around nature, around human beings, around cultures and society. This is something we inbuilt in ourselves or in our psyche, that we crave for more. We cannot stop, or that urge to stop, or to like there is this difference, that this very famous saying on social media these days, that you have to sit and reflect back, that what you need and what you want has a different meaning. So I mean, that was a very enriching thought you just shared today. So I liked that really very much.
Thank you, Shilpi. Anybody else? Because we got another 2 minutes and then we will finish your class for today. Shashank?
Jai Bhim, sir.
Jai Bhim, Shashank.
So I really want to reflect on the Buddhanist Dhamma, because every line, every single sentence of the Buddhanist Dhamma, we can do PhD on it for sure. Every single sentence. Yeah, exactly. Because while like working in the office, I just open my PDF and just try to read only one line and then reflect.
Very good.
Reflect for the whole day. Reflect for the whole day. And then I came that, oh, this can be interpreted in this way. This can be interpreted in that way. For example, Baba Sahib has written in the Buddhist Dhamma that wisdom is the boat, and the reflection, a rudder is a reflection. Wisdom is the boat and the rudder is the reflection. I thought that this particular sentence can have a multiple interpretation, and we can have a whole single book on this single line. So I can say in this way, every single sentence, every single chapter, if we interpret and be relevant in the 21st century, in the today's 2022 year, and that will give a different kind of a context of the Buddhanist Dhamma, and that will give a new meaning to the Buddhanist Dhamma, that yes, Baba Sahib, whatever has written in the Buddhanist Dhamma is truly applicable in today's 2022 as well, and in upcoming years as well, so that people will gain more interest to read the Buddhanist Dhamma.
Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good.
Thank you.
So that's it for today, and we will meet next Saturday, 11 o'clock. And there was a thought by Alka Madam that we should have something in the evening. I will put that in a group, okay? So thank you so much all for joining today, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Bhim.
Thank you, Jai Bhim.